Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our training session this morning. And we want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us this morning. This is an outreach that is focusing on Business Success Series Volume number 2. If you missed number 1, you definitely missed a treat. I'm not sure how often we will be going through the full series, but it's a partnership that we have with the DC Small Business Development Center Network at Howard University. And we want to thank you all for the partnership and bringing us this wealth of information to our participants today. I am Suzette Moore. I'm the Senior Vice President and Chief Procurement Officer for WMATA. And I also want to thank my Small Business Program Office for putting together these programs. They work tirelessly to put the programs together to bring the information to the vendor community. And we want to thank you for doing such a great job. So I'll bring you greetings also from our CEO and General Manager, Mr. Randy Clark. I'm sure you've probably seen him out and about. He's definitely a champion for WMATA and for our service delivery. He has a vision of being more customer centricity. So he wants to experience the product himself to see, first of all, to listen and hear what the customers are saying, and hopefully to be able to address some of the concerns. Of course, safety is another one of his concerns, and we're working hard to address those safety concerns and issues. And then, of course, while we're here, diversity, equity, inclusion. He wants to make sure that small and minority businesses understand how we do business and also be prepared to do business with us. He talks a lot about One Metro. He's knitting together all the service products that we have from Metro Bus, Metro Rail, and then some that need Metro Access also. We're trying to grow the business, get back to pre-pandemic numbers. We're on the rise. We're not there yet. Prior to pandemic, we were about 800,000 riders a day. And now we're averaging on the bus about 300,000 a day, and on the rail 280,000. So, but every week the numbers are climbing, and they're getting better as people start to return back to the office like we've done. Ridership definitely goes up. We're also looking for talented people to join us on the Metro staff. So if people are looking for opportunities to work with Metro, we have plenty of opportunities for that as well. And not to mention all of the contracting opportunities that we have. And that's what we're here to talk about today. We have everything, all types of construction projects going on. We have maintenance projects, IT projects. We talked a lot about financial opportunities now, how we're putting our budget together. We need help with that. So whatever your business needs are, you just need to understand how to contact us and to be prepared. That means being registered to do business with us. And we'll talk more about that as we move along. One thing I do want to mention, though, is the contract awards we did last fiscal year, $2.2 billion. And with that, we achieved 33.3% DBE goal achievement. Our goal is 25%. So I want to say that again. This phenomenal team that I have achieved 33.3% awards to small and to DBE firms. So, that is something I'm proud of and to celebrate. And I celebrate the team every day. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to the director of the program, Ms. Michelle Howard.
Thank you. Thank you, Suzette. Okay, everyone, I am telling you that I am excited and I want to welcome and thank you for today in WMATA Small Business Office outreach in collaboration with the DC Small Business Development Center Network at Howard University to bring you Business Success Series Volume 2, Networking to Success. We are excited about this collaboration because the DC Small Business Development Center adds so much support and value to the success of our small businesses. I want you to also remember that certification is the key to participation. And we encourage all certified and those not certified small businesses to please get certified with Ramada. We have 5 socioeconomic programs that you can be certified in. We have our disadvantaged and small business enterprise programs on our federal side. And we have our new minority business, small and micro business, our non-federal local programs. So we are definitely open for business, and we want part of our contracting opportunities. We are your metro, the way forward. So please remember to fill out your surveys that will be sent to you after the outreach event. These surveys help us to plan events that can benefit or support your business's growth. Again, thank you for attending, and I hope that you enjoy your sessions. Now, I want to introduce to you Mr. Charles Mott. Charles is currently the Associate Director at the DC Business Development Center at Howard University in Washington, D.C. In this capacity, he works directly with the Executive Director in planning, implementing, managing, and evaluating, reviewing, and reporting activities throughout the DC network to the U.S. Small Business Administration. He also counsels numerous DC small businesses, clients, providing technical assistance, training, assistance with access to capital, and business research. In 2021 alone, he counseled over 125 small businesses through the center. So right now, I want to welcome Charles Mott. And Charles, I'm handing it off to you for an amazing presentation to come.
Great. Thank you so much, Michelle. We're in collaboration with Metro. This is our first time doing this, but we've gotten off to a great start. Great speaker a week or so ago, and we're excited about today's speaker. I've had the pleasure of knowing Kevin Schulman, today's speaker, for a few years here. He's been a great speaker for us, one of our best attended workshops on networking and on other subjects. In fact, I would encourage everyone to pick up his book that he has out. I'm sure he's going to talk about it during the present, but well, hopefully he'll talk about it. But Kevin is an expert in sales, and especially specifically in the Sandler training method, and he's going to impart some of that along with some great techniques for networking, which is, as we know, is so essential to small business. His skill set covers a variety of areas, and he'll bring that into today's presentation. So, without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Kevin Schulman, our speaker today. Thank you, Kevin. I think you're
Okay, and thank you. And this is my pleasure and good to see everybody. Although I'm not seeing too many of you, I don't see too many cameras on. And you may have your cameras may be automatically off, but we are a relatively small group. And if I can get most of you to come off of mute, so we can have you participate and make this interactive training program, because that's what I do training, that would be great. I'll take a minute or two of commercial time just to introduce myself. Again, my name is Kevin Schulman. My company is Sandler Training. We are sales and client development experts. I work with individuals and mostly small companies, although some big ones as well, who are always looking to grow and expand their client base, but are finding that it's a whole lot tougher than it used to be. Getting in front of the right people is tougher. And once you get in front of getting them to make decisions is harder. So it's taking longer and longer to make each sale and get each new client, and that's becoming a problem. One of the other big things that drives people to us is referral generation, and maybe that's something that we'll about another time, is coming back to do a program on referral generation. That's one of the things that very few people are doing well enough. But today we're here to talk about networking, and what I'll do today is walk you through what networking is and where to do it, and what is the most important part, because quite frankly, most people, I hate to use a bad pun, but are out there thinking they're networking and what they're doing is not working. And sometimes it can be a tremendous waste of time. but it feels like we're getting things done. So it's important to know how to do a better job, because everybody loves the idea of networking. It's warmer and fuzzier and feels better than, say, cold calling, God forbid. Um, so, uh, and I think that, quite frankly, networking should be a part of everybody's mix, but you should have a mix of different ways of prospecting, different ways of finding new potential clients. Networking is great, but it's not necessarily the fastest. There are lots of others, ranging from cold calling to various forms of marketing through social media, through the big one that I mentioned before, which is referral generation. Um, and then there's the lowest hanging fruit. Does anybody have a clue as to what the lowest hanging fruit is? And I think everybody's on mute. If you can, some of you can come off mute. I'm not sure if you can or not. That would be great. In any case, what I mean by the lowest hanging fruit is selling more product to your existing client and perhaps your past client. Getting people who already know you, love you, know you do good product, good service at a fair price, and going and selling them more is still the easiest way to find new business. But networking is what we're here for today. So let's start with, what is networking? What is networking? And boy, oh boy, is there any issues that I just saw a sign come up on my screen that says my mic has been disabled? Is there any? Am I being heard?
Kevin, everybody's mic has been able.
Yeah,
Has
we
been
can hear
able.
you. We can hear
Okay,
you,
you
Kevin.
can hear us. Okay, you can hear me. Thank you. Okay, so the big question for right now is, what is networking? And my answer is pretty simple. Networking is opportunities to meet new people that maybe I can help in some way, and maybe they can help me in some way, period. And the key to that sentence is the sequence, that I first think about and help them in some way before I say, and maybe they can help me in some way. I ask people what networking is. They say it's ways for me to find new business. It's for me to find new centers of influence. It's ways for me to get new money, and all that stuff about me, 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 me. And networking really is about giving first. And you need to do that, because there's no question that, and we'll talk about something called Emerson's Law in a little bit. There's no question that the people who give more when it comes to networking are the people that get more. So the next question is, who can you network with and where can you network? Who can you network with and where can you network? And that is a really good question, because I don't want you to think about the two words, anyone or everyone, or the two words, anywhere and everywhere. Because at some level, there may be some truth in that, but when you say anyone or everyone, or anywhere and everywhere, I can't think of anywhere. Everything has to be very specific. So let's talk about some of the who's and where's. And so you can network with friends and family. They're the scary one. I'm sure there are a lot of you that have some belief and you don't mix business and pleasure. Well, let me tell you, you got to figure out how to get over that. You've just got to, because these are the people that literally love you and they would be happy to help you, but you've never had the conversation with them. And clearly it's important. Almost everyone is guilty of this. Do you have close friends and family members that don't fully understand what you do for a living? If that's the case, shame on you. They should know. And you should have that conversation with them. And quite frankly, it's a really easy conversation to have. And when we get more into the how, we can talk about that. But I want to stick with the who and the where. So friends and family is one. People who supply you are people who you can network with. Um, Certainly, chambers of commerce and things like the SBA, things like we're doing now, are great places to network. Other trade associations. I don't care what business you're in, there is a trade association for that business. And you should be going and working and becoming a member and networking with other people that are your colleagues, not your competitors. As soon as you call them competitors, you kind of put blinders on and you restrict your ability to do business. And as soon as you refer to them as colleagues, there's potential to do business with them. I have other trainers in my state. I happen to be in New Jersey. I have other trainers in New Jersey and around the country and a couple around the world that I do business with on a regular basis. And I love doing that business. Likewise, if you have any niche businesses that you do business with, any kind of niche industries, or if maybe there's only one industry you do business with, you could be a member of their trade associations. That way you get with other people in that business in a framework and an arena where everybody is there really to network and get to know each other. And quite frankly, they prefer to do business with people who are supporting their industry by becoming members of their trade associations. So trade association, other networking groups. Are you a member of a formal networking group? If you're not, you probably should be. Those are groups that exist purely for the purpose of getting to know each other well enough so that you can be comfortable referring business to each other. And the two big ones that a lot of people know, one is called LATIP, one is called BNI. BNI. Those are two franchised networking organizations. There are a lot of independents as well. It's for the independents, but I know a lot of people who make a lot of money with both LATIP and BNI. I encourage you to join a networking group if you don't already. And there's nothing that says you can't belong to two, maybe three. After that, I think, quite frankly, it's overkill because they are somewhat time consuming. They also take a long time to bear fruit. And make sure that you have a good networking group, that your group is filled with the right kinds of people that are good for you to refer to, and people that have the ability to refer to you. Don't look at a networking group as, can I sell to them? If that happens, that's a bonus, but that's not their purpose. So I think that's another great one. And then there's some like kind of simple everyday ladies, where you get your hair and nails done. Hair cutters tend to be, I'll use a technical term you may or may not know, the yentas of the world. They love to gossip and they know what everybody's doing. They also know what everybody's looking for. Let them know what you're looking for. They'll tell you who some people to call. I think that one's great. How about at the gym? If you belong to a gym, I always say if you can get naked with someone, you can ask them what they do for a living. And at some level, I guess I mean that. So the gym is another one. How about church? Church is great. Church is the best. So on a couple of levels, first off, if you start going on a regular basis, it does so the other regulars realize that you're a regular. And when you are a fellow regular, think about the bonding that you're doing and the trust that you're building. You believe the same thing, treat by the same person in the same amount. And then it's not too long before, after the service on the way back to the car, someone says, hey, would you like to grab some lunch? And that's how that all happens. And it's wonderful. By the way, something I figured out is that if you go to church just for that reason, you will go to hell. But there's another piece of church that most people don't think about. How about your priest, rabbi, or minister? Those are people that know everybody in the flock. They know most of what their parishioners are doing for a living. They know who needs help with various things, and they love to help fellow parishioners. So go to them and talk to them what you do and what you're looking for and how maybe they can help. I love that one. I love that one. Even things like I'm getting on an airplane later today, And if I'm stuck in the middle seat, I feel an obligation to look left and right and at least introduce myself. At the very least, I've got to introduce myself and find out what they do for a living. I don't need to be obnoxious about it, but I need to at least say hello. So my point is, yeah, point, it's everywhere and everywhere, but you have to have your antenna up. I don't know if anybody here is old enough to remember Martian. My favorite Martian was a TV show from when I was a little kid. And there was a Martian who had antenna that used to come out of his head. And it was like rabbit ears out of a TV. It was a really sophisticated, high technology show back in the 60s. But I think about it as having antenna. And one of my favorite examples of how it can happen everywhere if your antenna are up. I was at now this is a crazy thing, a bar mitzvah in Kansas. Now, there aren't too many of those, but I was actually at a bar mitzvah in Kansas. And in the middle of the party, I get up to go to the bar to get a drink. And some woman walks over to me and says, "You must be Lloyd's friend Kevin from New Jersey." And I said, "And you must be his friend that knows everybody else here." And we started to chat. And she said, "And what do you do for a living?" And my antenna were down. I was at a party in another part of the country. I wasn't thinking about networking. I wasn't thinking about business. And I just gave the 2-word answer. I do sales training. And I never give that answer. I wouldn't tell any of you to give that answer. But what I did was I said that, and she said, "Really? Do you ever help people in insurance?" And it was like, do, 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 do. The antenna went up. And I said, "Geez, you must be asking for a reason." And she said, "Yes, my son just got licensed. He lives in New York, not too far from you. And maybe you could help him because he's really struggling." And 2 weeks later, I had a client from a bar mitzvah in Kansas. So the key is you have to have your antenna up all the time. Does that make sense? Okay. Let's talk about when you go to a networking event. When you go to a networking event, what should you be doing? How do you do it effectively? What do you want to accomplish? And what are a few do's and don'ts? Let's start with a couple of do's and don'ts. First is, and some of you get mad at me for this, and I apologize, don't drink. Don't drink. You're there for business. You are on the clock, and you are less sharp after one drink than you were before it. And I promise I love it more and enjoy it more than any of you. I'm a wine collector. I'm an old wino from the old days. And I'd always prefer to have a glass in my hand than not, but not when I'm networking. If you feel the need to have a prop, go get a club soda with a twist of lime and it'll look like you're drinking a gin and tonic. That's fine if you need the prop. And don't tell me that you need to have the drink and 1 or 2 drinks in order to feel comfortable going over to strangers. Get over it. And we'll talk about, in fact, how to do that in a couple of minutes. So that's one thing, is don't drink. 2 is when you pre-register for a networking event, typically when you get there, they will have pre-printed a name tag for you. It'll have your first name, second name, and your company. There will also be some stick-on ones for the people who did not pre-register. So there'll be a magic marker in the stick-on ones. Take one of the stick-on ones. I always do that, and I just put one word on it. I put Kevin, first name only. And by the way, I'll talk about that in a sec. By the way, the name tag does not go like Pledge of Allegiance over your heart on the left side. It goes on your right side. There's actually a correct side, goes on your right side, so that when you reach out to shake hands with somebody, their eye goes up your arm and reads the tag. You shouldn't have to kind of go like this to read somebody's name. So why just put your first name? Actually, a few reasons. One is, by just putting first name, it says I'm much more approachable. I'm a first name kind of guy. I'm an easier guy to talk to. So that's one thing. 2 is something I realized I was doing it mostly for that reason. And I realized as I got older, it's easier to read from further away. And so when someone can read your name, they'll be more drawn to you. So further away will be drawn to you. Second thing is, why not second name and a company name. I don't want second name because that makes the name smaller. I want it to be able to be seen from further. I just discussed that. But company name will make it so people will prejudge whether they want to talk to you or not. I operate under two names. My one name is Sandler Training. So people in today's world, most people know who we are. Most people in business have heard of Sandler Training. You know, we're the largest training organization of any kind in the world at this point, and all that is great. But there are an awful lot of people that would see that and go, I don't need that. And they'd make that determination beforehand and decide not to talk to me. Or worse, if I had my other name, which is Schulman and Associates, that sounds like either a law firm or an accounting firm. Does anybody at a networking event want to talk to the lawyer or the accountant? For the most part, not so much. So I don't want people making that predetermination. So I just put my first name on it. It causes them to ask me questions about what I do. It gets the conversation going. Let's also talk a little bit about what do you want to accomplish? When I ask that question, I hear a lot of things. I hear things like, I want to find one new client. I want to find 3 good prospects. I want to take home 25 good business cards. So I hear all sorts of things of what people want to accomplish at a networking event. I want to make it so that my goal for the networking event is based on my behavior and I success or failure based on what I do. Excuse me. So, for example, I have been to networking events in my life that were just really bad events. None of the kind of people that I could help, none of the kind of people that could help me were there. It happens. And if my goal is to find 3 new prospects, it would be impossible to happen in that meeting. So I don't want to make it based on that. So I'll have a goal, and it's pretty simple. I want to have X new conversations with people I've never met before. That's my goal, and I can control that. And I'll use a team, and if I'm going to an event that's scheduled from, say, 5 in the evening till 8 o'clock, if in the first hour I have 15 conversations and they're all horrible conversations nowhere, I can decide, you know what? Not the best group for me. I've done my job. I can leave, and I can leave early, and that knowing that I did a good job. And I don't think of that as a failure by any stretch. Now, if in the first hour I've got 15 conversations and 10 of them are really good conversations, I'll change my goal to 25 or 30 or 40, and I'll end up being the last one out. And so it's all about having a goal to have some number of conversations with people you've never met. And I think that's a really good thing to accomplish. By the way, people ask me, how do you remember things? By the way, has anybody ever had this experience? You go to, say, a chamber meeting and you come back with 40 or 50 cards. And then the next meeting, you start doing follow-up thinking they're not calls. How long does it take? How many do you have to call before you realize that they're cold calls?
Hi, good morning. My name is Sagai Mamo. My last name is spelled as M like Mary, A apple, M Mary,
We need to get
O
him.
orange.
Excuse me, can we
Date of
mute
birth is
him,
12,
please?
16, 1952. I have.
I just muted him. Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. So where was I? Oh, collecting cards. If you're gonna have conversations with people, and you're gonna be collecting cards, especially if it's a large event, it's hard to remember people. So I'll do a couple. I'll do something really simple like cards that from people I definitely want to follow up with that I think are important will go in my right pocket. People that hand me cards that I have no interest in will go in my left pocket. That's one easy way, or I'll dog ear the cards that are worth following up on. But one of the things I'll do is I've got Michelle in the middle of my screen, so I'll make this about Michelle. When I meet Michelle and we're having this great conversation, and I will make notes on the card. I'll always have a pen with me. I'll have her card, and I'll write different notes about what she looks like or something specific that she said. that will trigger a memory for me of who she is, so that when I go back to talk to her and I call her, I'll know who I'm talking to. Likewise, if you're at a really big event where like a major trade show, for example, where there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, and over a couple of days, you're going to be meeting and run into a lot of people, and they will never remember you. Never remember you. Here's a little trick. I like that word. Here's a little trick to get them to remember you. So I'm talking to Michelle. I'm meeting Michelle at this big thing, and we're having this conversation. And I have her card in my hand, and I say, Michelle, when I call you in the next couple of days, you're likely not to remember me. What should I say to you to make you remember me in this conversation? And then whatever she says, I write it down verbatim, word for word. She says, tell me that you were the bald guy with a beard and glasses that made me laugh about blah, blah, blah. I say, that's exactly what I write down. And then I call her up 2 days later, and I said, and I'll say, Michelle, you probably don't remember me, but when we spoke, you told me that when I called you, I should tell you that I'm the bald guy with a beard and glasses that made you laugh about blah, blah, blah. And she herself starts laughing, and she says, oh, yes, I remember. And the reason that's so effective is that asking her what I should say to remind her of the conversation, and then feeding back her words, is a really unusual piece of conversation, and that makes it memorable. And so it's really important to do that. So, somebody asked if we always make a phone call for the follow-up, or is email okay? Okay. You're not going to like my answer. Here's the reality. Sales is a face-to-face and phone-to-phone sport. It is not an email sport. Email is a great way to get information from point A to point B. It is a horrible way to have a conversation. It is a horrible way to engage someone. So even just sending them an invitation to link with them on LinkedIn, that's a nice thing to do, but it's not having a conversation. Call them up and have a conversation. Do whatever you need to do to get them on the phone. By the way, I was afraid to say that. That's very funny. And another thing you can do right then and there is, while you're with them, is say, when I call you, what should I say to the person who answers the phone that'll get me through to you? All right, they've got gatekeepers. They may have gatekeepers. Ask them what's the best way to get through to you, because I am going to call you. I'd like to continue our conversation. So, okay. Next, I want to talk to you about Emerson's Law, and then start talking about really how to do the networking thing, what to say when you engage with another person. And Emerson's Law, if you don't know who Emerson is, there were a few great Emersons in history. There was the electronics guy. If there are any of you that are old enough to remember, there was number 32 from the New York Jets from the 1960s and early 70s. Tells you where my football allegiance is, and I apologize to some of you for that. And then, of course, there was Ralph Waldo. And somewhere in the library is a book called Emerson's Essays. In there is his essay on compensation. I encourage you to never even think about going to read that. It is the worst 17 or 18 ever written. It is boring. It is tedious. I can boil it down to 6 that we call Emerson's Law. And these are 6 words that, if you take them to heart, can change your life. And I mean that sincerely. I don't say that very often. And as an old wise man once said to me, anytime someone tells you they've got one sentence that can be life-changing, you might as well write it down. And this is only 6. So here it is, Emerson's Law. If you want more, give more. If you want more, give more. And I mean that in every way. If you believe that because it's biblical, I think that's great. If you believe that because it's metaphysical, I think that's great. If you think that, kind of I do, If you believe that because Emerson said it, I think that's a fine reason. And if you believe it because I just told you about it, I think that's great. But if you take it to heart and be a giver, because people recognize those people, so that people that are givers, and the universe works in crazy ways. And when you start giving enough, things start coming back to you, but not necessarily from the people you gave to. It's not a quid pro quo. And I'm going to tell you my great Emerson story. Back, I'm going to guess around 15 years ago now, when I first moved to the Jersey Shore, what I found was my commute to my volunteer work in New York was getting longer. And so going after work meant coming home late at night, which I didn't enjoy. And the weekends I was always busy. So I wanted more time to do my volunteer work. So I decided I wanted to get my work week down to 4 days a week. And I sat down, as it was goal setting time, end of the year, and I sat down to put a plan together to make that happen. And the biggest thing I did in that plan, there were a number of things, but the biggest thing I did was I made a commitment that I still live up to today. And that is to give at least one good quality referral every day. And that's hard to do. I'm telling you, it's hard to do. It's a challenge sometimes, but it's an amazing thing. I joke about it that it took Emerson a couple of months to realize that I was serious about my commitment. But since then, I really don't remember the last time that I went more than a couple of days without my phone ringing and someone on the other end saying, "Hey, Kevin, someone told me I needed to call you that you could help me." Or get an email from somebody saying, "Hey, here's an e-introduction. Kevin, you really need to talk to George. George, you need to talk to Kevin. Kevin, George needs your help because of this, 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 and this. Here's email addresses and phone numbers. Go at it." And so that happens on a regular basis. And the reason it happens is because I give at least one good quality referral every day. And I encourage you to do the same thing. Let's talk about what the conversation sounds like when you meet somebody. And then I want to give you the magic question that will get them to love you in under 30 seconds. And I always joke that only I knew that when I was single. And then I also want to talk about how to get a room a little bit, because I think that's important. So when you walk up to somebody and to start a conversation, here is the one most important thing. Rule number one is, by hook or by crook, you have to get them to go first. And rule number two is number one. It is the most important thing in networking. When you get together, you got to get them to go first. I don't care if they walk up to me and say, "Hi, I know you work for Sandler. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and the company?" I will always say, "I would love to, but why don't you tell me a little bit about you?" And that's all it takes. That's all it takes. And then they go. And that's because almost all people at a networking event, they're there with their sales hats on, not with their buying hats on. And all they want to do is talk. They want to give you their story. So let them go first. And there's a lot of reasons why I want them to go first. One of the biggest ones is, if I go first, while I'm talking, what are they thinking about? They're thinking about what they're going to say when it's their turn. They're not listening. They're not paying attention. If I can get them to go first, then there's a chance that they'll actually listen and pay attention when it's my turn. So that's one reason. Second reason I want them to go really of utmost importance is because I'm trying to figure out who they are. Are they a prospect for me? Are they a potential referral source or a center of influence? Are they a potential vendor for me? Am I a potential customer for them? There's all sorts of things that I could be thinking about what our relationship could be. So when it's my turn, I can tell my story and wrap it around them. I can give them my 30-second commercial and wrap it around them and make it different. And we'll talk briefly about 30-second commercials in a couple of minutes. So critical for you to go first. They start talking, and when they're talking, I'm listening and I'm paying attention. And I always make a point of asking at least 1 or 2 questions, because that demonstrates that I'm interested in paying attention. So always ask 1 or 2 questions. And the best happen is if I say, gee, Michelle, when we're in conversation, I need to introduce you there because he'd be a great person for you to talk to. And that's the best thing. If I can do that, that's spectacular. So when Michelle is finally finished, I ask her the magic question that gets her to fall in love with me. Here's the question. Michelle, can you describe for me what your ideal prospect looks like so that I could recognize them if I saw them? And in that moment, it's love. Now, here's the one problem with that question. When you ask someone who their ideal prospect is or what their ideal prospect looks like, either way you ask that question, be prepared for a little silence, because you can't imagine how many people have never considered that question and have never stopped to think, who is my ideal prospect? And so wait patiently. You don't have to fill the silence. Just wait patiently. Might take 10 or 20 seconds, might take 30 seconds, but they'll figure it out. And beware, there's some people that are actually give you that. Remember when I said, when someone says everyone or anywhere, and then I can't think of anyone, right? So it's the same thing. So don't let them get away with that. When they say anybody or everybody or anywhere or everywhere, say, wait a second, that's not specific enough. Can you give me something more specific? All right, I think that's important. And so you're getting them, and you're having that conversation. I see a question, I'll address it in a moment. And you're having that conversation, and they're telling you who they're if I have someone I can refer them to, I do. And so sometimes I will say, hey, Michelle, before we're done, I'll go over and I'll introduce you to Charles. Now, obviously, I've got a good relationship with Charles. Now, I've just met Michelle. Now, when I give a referral to somebody, I normally give a wholehearted referral, but I just met Michelle, so I can't do that. So I'm honest about it. When I get to Charles, I say, Charles, I just met Michelle, but I think you and she maybe should talk. You've got something in common. And so I make the referral, but I let Charles know it's a new person in my life. It's not someone I'm giving a wholehearted referral to. So I don't want to put my reputation on the line for someone I don't know yet. Now, what I love about asking that of what does your ideal prospect look like, what socially obligated to ask me when it's my turn? Yeah, she's got to ask me the same question. And you can bet I've got answers to that question, lots of answers to that question. Now, one second, I saw a question up. What if we're networking with local or federal agencies that we're looking to do business with? How would this question change? If you're talking to someone who worked for a federal agency, I don't think it changes that much. Hey, I might be appropriate for you, but who else are you looking for? What other projects are you working on? I don't think it changes very much. It's the same thing. It's just demonstrating that you're interested in helping them. And it encourages them to ask you the same kind of question when it's your turn. Now, when it's your turn, you need to have a really good, strong 30-second commercial. And I don't know, quite frankly, if we're going to have the time today, because we've only got 10 o'clock, to really get into 30-second commercials. But your 30-second commercial should not be, here's what it should not be. I'm a sales trainer. I help you make more money by working with your sales team and helping them get better at prospecting and closing business. That's not a good 30-second commercial. All that is it's all about you. Your 30-second commercial needs to be all about them and the kind of problems that you know they have that you can help them solve or resolve. And if they're not a prospect, talk about the kinds of prospects you work with and the kinds of problems that you help resolve. And because that's how you can get someone to say, yeah, that makes sense. I could use that. All right. So, and I've got a number of different 30-second commercials. Right. I do business with individuals. And in fact, individuals and really small companies that might have salespersons and people, and typically the owner is the top salesperson, sometimes the only one, and those are clients for me. Mid-sized clients are good for me. Occasionally, I do business in corporate America, and I also have another fun niche. I do business with the so-called professions, the engineers, architect, attorneys, and accountants. And that's fun business. I love that business. But if I start talking about attorneys and accountants when I'm talking to, I don't know, an insurance agent, that's not going to connect. That's why I need to get them to go first. And each one of those different types of people that I just talked about, they have different issues. So my 30-second commercial is different for each one. You can imagine that my 30-second commercial will be different for the senior partner at a law firm versus a junior attorney who's looking to make partner. Both could be my clients, but they've got different issues, lots of different issues. My commercial would be different for someone who is a C-level CEO, for example, of a large company, large corporate America company, versus an independent small business owner who maybe has 2 or 3 salespeople. Those are all different kinds of prospects for me, and they may all be good prospects for me, and I can help all of them, but my commercial has to be different for each one. So learn to have a really good 30-second commercial, and you can have a generic one as well. I did my generic one when I kind of introduced myself at the very beginning of this, because I don't know who's here and I don't know what all your businesses are, other than my suspicion is you're all relatively small businesses and all relatively young in business. That may not be the case. So I talked about my generic 30-second commercial. But one of the reasons you want them to go first is that you can make your 30-second commercial as specific as possible. But when you tell them that you solve the problems that you know they have before they've even told you they have those problems, now you're a genius, and now they want to know more, and they want to know more about how you can help rather than just about what you do. Does that make sense? Okay. So, strong example of a 30-second commercial somebody just asked for. Okay, I'm going to give you a format. And so let's take 5 minutes on it. I'm going to give you a format, and then I'll give you perhaps my generic one and one more specific one. That's hopefully that sounds that's a good way to deal with this. So here's the format. I work with, or if you want, you can say we work with, whichever one makes sense, either people who or companies that, followed by a positive statement, followed by 2, 3, or 4 problems that they might have. 2, 3, or 4 problems that they might have. And then the comfortable with is followed by a negatively phrased question. So, to give you an example, all right. When I did my generic one, I made it all encompassing. I said I work with individuals, companies, and professional firms, right? All 3, who are constant, now the positive statement, who are constantly looking to grow and expand their client base. Now that's almost everybody, isn't it? If you're in business, you're looking to grow and expand your client base. So what they're thinking is, yeah, that could be me. But are finding that things are a lot tougher in a COVID and post-COVID world than it ever was. Getting decision makers on the phone is more difficult. Worse, when you get them on the phone, it's tougher, or get in front of them even, it's tougher to get them to make decisions, causing sales cycles to get longer and longer and longer. And then even worse than that is most people aren't getting enough referrals from their existing client base, so they're constantly having to go out and prospect and make cold calls. And then I end with a negatively phrased question, but you're probably not dealing with any of those issues, are you? And when I do that, first of all, that negatively phrased question makes it sound less salesy. There's a lot of reasons for it, but I'll just leave it at that. And when I'm listing all those issues, I know they're having a lot of those issues and they're thinking, well, wait a minute, I do have that problem. And now if I'm talking one-on-one, right? So that's my generic one. If I had to go first, or if I'm with introducing myself to a larger group, and then I have to use a generic one, and whoever I'm talking to, say it's Charles, says, well, but wait a minute, I do have one of those problems. If I'm talking to him one-on-one. And I said, really? Which one? And he says, that thing with people are taking longer to make decisions. I'm having that problem. And then I do here's the thing. What you want to do in that moment is jump on it. And what you have to do is fall away from it. And what I do is I act surprised. Really, I'm surprised. Why is that the biggest problem? And now he starts convincing me that he's got the problem that I told him. Do you get how that works? So the negatively phrased question makes it not salesy. Listing some of those issues, he picks one, and I say, really, I'm surprised that's your problem. Whatever he picks, I act surprised. Why is that your biggest problem? And now he starts selling me on why it's such a big problem. Okay. Let me give you an example of a 30-second commercial for a name partner of a law firm. Okay. And one of the things I'll tell them is I work with professional firms, or I might even say law firms, right, that are always looking to grow and expand their client base, but are really concerned because they've got 20 or 30 young lawyers beneath them, all thinking they're on partner track. And they don't know how to figure out who are the ones that can get good at client development and good at bringing in business, so to make them really partner material. And worse, sometimes there's a senior partner who's thinking of retiring, but he's bringing in the bulk of the business for the firm, and he wants to still have income after he retires, and he's not sure, and the rest of the partner's not sure how to keep up the business development that the partner's going to leave, that the big guy's going to leave. But you probably don't have any of those issues at your firm, do you? And that gets the same kind of stuff. So hopefully that all helps. And my goal for the next 10 minutes or so is I want each of you, I'm going to give you, and I want each of you to hopefully hopefully you're taking notes. I want everybody to leave here with between 10 and 25 specific people to network with. Specific people to network with. And so I'm going to break them into, and I want you to write down at least 2 names and up to as many as 5 names in each of these groups. And then when we get done, I'm going to tell you what to do with the list. Okay. So the first group is an easy one. Current and past clients. Jot down between 2 and 5 of your current or past clients that you haven't spoken with in at least a couple of months. So jot down 2 to 5 current or past clients that you haven't spoken with in at least a couple of months. And just take a moment or two and jot down, think of a few, and just jot down their names. Hopefully you've got it. Now the next group. Next group I call the jealousy group. The jealousy group. Jot down the names of 2 to 5 people that you know, direct competitors or colleagues. 2 to 5 people that you know other than direct competitors or colleagues whose client list you covet. There's a word I don't get to use very often. Whose client list you would love to get your hands on. Whose client list you would introduce to. And jot down just 2 to 5 of them. Everybody's got that one? The next one is the tough one. It's called the benefit group. And I'll give you an example in a minute, but I define it as who else benefits when you get a new client? Who else benefits when you get a new client? So for example, the easiest example is when a realtor sells a house. When a realtor sells a house, there's a mortgage guy that's going to benefit. There's a title guy that's going to get benefit. There's an inspection company that's going to benefit. Maybe there's a lawn guy and a pool guy that's going to benefit. A lot of people benefit when a realtor sells a house. Who else benefits when you sell something? Now, if for any reason you struggle with that one, it's okay if you don't fill it out. But try to come up with 2 to 5 people that fill that. Now the fourth one. The fourth group is called I like them. This one, jot down 2 to 5 people who have given you referrals in the last couple of months. 2 to 5 people who have given you referrals in the last couple of months, because you can be damn sure you do like those people. And then the last group is called They Like Me. And that is jot down 2 to 5 people that you have given referrals to in the last few months. And again, you can be damn sure they do like you. They absolutely like you. So now that you have this list, you should have between 10 and 25 people on that list. Keep that list on your desk. And here's your job. Excuse me. Here's your job. I want you every week until that list runs out to call 2 of those people and invite them to lunch or invite them out for a cup of coffee. Breakfast, lunch, or coffee. Excuse me. And just go have a networking conversation with them. Tell them you just want to get together. It's been a while to see how you can help them. And maybe they can help you. You want to do the networking thing with them. And here's what I can promise you. If you will do that with 10 to 20, I promise you in the next couple of months, you'll find yourself with at least 1 new client. It would be hard not to. You'd have to really be screwing it up to not end up with a client or 2 out of that. Nearly impossible. Let's see, there were 1 or 2 other things I wanted to give you. Is there anybody else, I don't know, maybe do the hand raise thing. Anybody else besides me that's shy? People don't believe that about me, but it's absolutely the truth. I've done training programs at Madison Square Garden. I've done training programs in Las Vegas. Give me a microphone and put me up in front of a large group of people, and that's a turn on for me. That is absolutely hot for me. I love it. But put me in a room full of strangers and ask me to go mingle, I hate that. I hate that. I don't like networking. I teach it fairly well. I know how to do it really well. I can force myself to do it pretty well, but I don't like doing it. So I created something that I call the daisy chain. And here's what I do. So I meet Lisa, and I can always force myself to walk up to one person and start a conversation. I can do that. I can muster up the courage to talk to one person. And I'm talking to Lisa, and we have a great conversation. And I say, Lisa, could you do me a favor? Would you introduce me to one person in this room that you know that I don't know? And she says, sure. And she says, how about I introduce you to Emily? Now, understand what's happening here. Now that she knows what I do, when I ask her if she'll introduce me to someone that she knows that I don't, she's thinking about who's the right person to introduce me to. So when she introduces me to Emily, it's actually a referral, right? And now I'm talking to Emily, and I'm doing the thing with Emily, and I get Emily to go first, and then I do my thing. And when I get all done, I say, Emily, would you do me a favor? She says, sure. I said, would you introduce me to someone in the room that you know that I don't? And then she introduces me to Marla. And I just get daisy chained around the room without having to need the courage to go up and introduce myself to anybody other than the first one. Other than the first one. And by the way, one other little thing I sometimes do, just for the fun of it, there's always one or two shy people at an event like that, right? They're the ones on the periphery. They're hugging the wall, and they're watching, and they're just not saying anything to anybody. I will kind of go sidle up to them, and I'll just look at them and I'll say, do you hate these things as much as I do? And they always go, oh, really? I hate it. I hate it. And then it's just, so tell them, listen, at least we're talking. So tell me what you do. And I'll just get the shy person who's actually thankful that I walked up to them, where everybody else thinks they're about to be accosted. So anyway, I love the daisy chain things. I just thought I'd add that to the mix today. I'm coming up to the end of what I've got today. I want to do a couple of things before I leave. Can we somehow, is there a way to unmute everybody?
Everyone is unmuted. They just have to
Everyone
turn
is,
their mics on.
okay, everyone's unmuted. If everybody would take yourselves off of mute. I like to do a couple of things at the end of every program I do. Can I get 3 or 4, maybe 5 volunteers on something I call lessons learned? Tell me one thing you got out of the last hour or so.
For me, this is Emily. Thank you so much. This has been great. So much that I've gotten out of, and I've taken a lot of notes. I think the one thing, not surprisingly, that I need to follow up with a phone call versus an email, because I've done emails.
That was you, wasn't it? Yes.
Yes. And I've done emails and I never get responses. And I'm the shy person and I am the introvert. So I do need to come out of my comfort zone. So that's the one thing that I need to push myself to do.
Yeah. Here's the one thing that's great, Emily. Even if you really screw up that call, the great thing about making cold calls, the Jetsons never happened. So, you're not going to be walking down the street the next day and someone's going to say, that was you.
Right.
You've got a little bit of the protection of anonymity behind the phone. So while I know it takes a little bit of guts to pick up the phone and dial it, it's someone you already met and said, let's continue the conversation.
Okay.
So just call them.
All right. Thank you.
Just call them. Okay, I need 2 more volunteers.
Good morning. My name is Thea, and I believe my best takeaway is the introduction to someone. I never thought about my position is marketing and business development. So I always want to pitch our company, but I never thought about allowing the new person that I'm meeting to introduce themselves first. And then I can answer. And I love that. So I'm definitely going to start using that now.
Good. That's great, because that's absolutely first rule of networking is get them to go first. And they're always happy to do it because all they want to do is show up and throw up, right? They just want to tell their story again and again and again all night long. So no question. I need 1 or 2 more. Who's volunteering before I volunteer you?
Hey, this is Mike. I do like how you phrase the commercial, right? Positive statement, negative statement. I think that's a good way to get people talking. So thought that was very helpful and a good way just to be able to kind of ask a question without being kind of salesy, like you said.
Got it. Okay. And then last thing before I turn it back over to, I'm not sure whether I'm turning it back to Charles or Marlo, but I want to put my sales hat on for a moment. If I can get everybody to go into the chat for just a minute, and let me tell you what I'd like you to put in the chat. I'd like you to go to the chat and either put the word yes or the word no. And if you put the word yes, I'm going to ask you to put in a little more information. So let me tell you what yes and no mean first. No is, thank you very much. I learned some new things about networking. Really appreciate it. Maybe got a chuckle along the way, but not interested in hearing about Sandler. Please don't put me on your mailing list. Please don't call me. And I promise you will honor that. And I promise you that it takes a whole lot more than that to insult me. So if that's the case, please go into the chat and just put in the word no. On the other hand, put down the word yes if you said this was really good, enjoyed it, got something out of it, and I'd like to know more. Maybe it's more about how you can help me in sales in general. Maybe it's that referral generation thing we talked about. Maybe it's just other ways that you can help me grow my company and grow my business. If put down the word yes and your phone number, your cell number, so that I can get in touch with you. And sometime it'll probably going to be a week at least, because I'm going to be away for a little over a week. So it's going to be a week and a half before I get in touch. So I apologize for that in advance. But if you would go into the chat and do that for me, I would really appreciate it. Even if the answer is no, please do that for me. I really would appreciate that. And other than that, that is all I've got for you today. I'm turning it back over to Charles, but please, everybody, go into the chat. Like I said, I'm turning it over to Michelle.
Not a problem. Let me tell you something. I have been
Nothing else
so
is a whole lot prettier
excited.
than Charles.
Look, I have been excited just hearing all these wonderful tips. I was taking notes myself. Oh my God, Kevin. I'm gonna tell you, I was like, I never thought about the whole name tag and what side to put the name tag on, and then it draws that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I wrote that down. I- Putting the first name on there, having trigger words to remember someone by when you're doing a follow-up. But I really like the Emerson's Law. If you want more, give more. Oh, this was amazing. And the 5 groups
Emerson's
that you
Law
gave us.
absolutely works. It's a way to run your life.
Oh my gosh, this was awesome. So I want to say thank you so much for everything. I want to now go into thanking our attendees for coming today. I really hope you enjoyed our Business Success Series Volume 2, Networking to Success. I want to say thank you to Charles and his special guest presenter, Kevin Schulman, the Small Business Programs Office Certification and Outreach staff. I will be remiss staff for doing such an amazing job. I also want to thank our Senior Vice President and Chief Procurement Officer, Suzette Moore, who also brought greetings from our General Manager, Randy Clark. I hope you were able to learn some important information to help your business grow a little bit more today. We do look forward to seeing you at our next outreach in March. We will be in Annapolis tomorrow night at the MBE night in Annapolis. So if any of you are down there, please, come and check us out and everything. Remember, certification is the key to participation, and we look forward to your certification applications being submitted to us. I want to say have a great rest of your day. Remember to fill your surveys out. We'll make sure the information is accompanying your surveys. And I look forward to us getting together again for our next series. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Absolutely, my pleasure. Here. Go.
That concludes our presentation. Thank you and have a great day. Michael, stopping recording.
Okay.